These Ipswich Town players are defying the odds.
Welcome back to TWTV, where you join us at a very rainy Euston Station as we prepare to follow Ipswich Town of the Premier League on the road to Manchester for our first visit to the Etihad Stadium for what is a daunting prospect to play against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City side, assembled for £1 billion. It's McKenna's biggest test to date. Will his record of not having 2 defeats in a row stay? How will our emerging team get on against the likes of Haaland, De Bruyne, etc.? And of course today it's a lot about our mission statement. Our mission statement is running towards adversity, and it doesn't get more adverse than this. So let's go on the road and meet some Blues. Back to TWTV, where you join us outside the Etihad, where I'm joined by, what's your name please?
Daniel.
Daniel, great to have you on.
Thank you.
Are you a season ticket holder at Ipswich?
Yes.
And whereabouts do you sit?
The North Upper.
North Upper, great area to sit in.
Yes.
Well, here we are. Now, interestingly, the people watching this are like in a time machine, so they know the score.
Yeah.
They know whether we've been absolutely blitzed
Yep.
or we've had one of the most famous victories in our entire seasons. How do you feel about today?
I mean, we've got nothing to lose really, so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. We can either come here and nick a 1-0 win and it'll be one of the best games ever, or we lose 4-5-0 and at the end of the day we haven't really humiliated ourselves. So,
well, I think that's it. I think we want to sort of continue the Liverpool trend of actually giving a really good count of ourselves and then moving on to Fulham.
Yeah.
One last thing to talk about. This is really the end of a bit of an era, isn't it? We've got potentially 11 signings coming in. So by the Fulham game, maybe there'll only be 2 of the legacy League One players. How does that make you feel? Are you? Is it something that has to change, or are you a bit sad to see that change coming?
It's a little bit sad. Obviously, the players that have got us here, obviously there's only a couple of them remaining, but ultimately, if we want to stay in this league, then we've got to make changes. So if they're positive change and they keep us up, then I'm all for it.
And also, all of the legacy players are going to have a role, aren't they? So they're going to become more like subs who can come on and make an impact. Well, listen, enjoy the game.
Thank you very much.
I'm hoping that we're looking back at this video and it's been a classic victory, but let's see. Okay, enjoy it. Thanks again for watching. Bye. Okay, welcome back to TWTV, where we move to the view from the press box. And I'm joined by Phil and Kallum, coming from the swanky Etihad press area. And we really want to start off by looking at really a summary of the game. And Phil, do you want to just give us a quick summary of your thoughts, please?
Well, I was just thinking, we kind of got to where we thought we'd be at the end via a sort of circuitous route, didn't we? I think we kind of anticipated the result would probably be, losing to Manchester City by 2 or 3 goals, but there was quite a lot along the way. Not least Town taking the lead in the 7th minute through Sammy Smodic with what turned out to be our only shot on target. But in this press conference, we just listened to Kieran in his press conference. He said that was the goal that we thought we'd score, sort of thing, because of their high line and Sammy Smodic and Amari Hutchinson getting in behind the Manchester City defence. And so obviously, it worked out very well with literally our first attack that we went in front. But then there was 3 goals in 191 seconds. I think Callum worked it out. That were literally 5 minutes after we'd gone ahead. That kind of, well, that really sealed the game. Really, there wasn't the game was pretty much over at 3-1. But I think we sort of talk about the first goal was a penalty, wasn't it? That Leif Davis making a tackle that he didn't really need to make on Savinho, who I thought was very, very good. I thought he was certainly one of their most impressive players, of quite a lot of impressive players. I think that the referee, he obviously gave the decision on VAR, but I think he probably should have given it in real time. We were kind of thinking it looked a penalty, and Donovan Blake sat behind us, who is a Manchester City fan, was immediately calling it as a penalty. And then almost immediately, Aaron Muric getting caught on the ball in the manner that he did. It was interesting. Kieran in his press conference said that was more of a game management issue, he thought, than a playing it out from the back sort of issue. Because we had similar goals, a couple of similar goals last year with Hladky. I think Watford was one, wasn't it, where he passed the ball out from the back and lost and gave the ball away. But Kieran, I think, thought it was more about the situation that the game was in, where Muric was always going to get pressured in that way because City were going to come out having conceded, having just scored, and with their tails up at that point and trying to take the ball off him, and perhaps it was a bit of his kind of perhaps a bit of naivety on his part there, really.
And it was interesting, Phil. That I think, in a way, at the start of the game, we were sort of on the same terms as them, weren't we? We were going quite well. Some of those breaks forward were working, and then in a way, those mistakes just came in, and the euphoria of the early goal, we sort of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit in that mad period of time where we gave away the goals. Really, they were more by our errors than, in a way, Man City's own class, I think.
Yeah, I think exactly. You're going to get enough problems from Manchester City without presenting them with a penalty and the opportunity for the second goal. The third goal, I thought we were a bit shell-shocked at that point, really. That we'd obviously gone ahead and then so soon afterwards found ourselves 2-1 behind. And the third one, really, I think that allowing that pass to be made as easily as that, although it was obviously a terrific pass. Muric again came off his line, not really convincingly. Haaland's pace got him there a long way before him. But as Kieran in his press conference said, the positive there was that we sort of reset ourselves and then didn't concede another goal until the 88th minute. We kept it sort of. They did have one or two opportunities, hitting the bar twice.
They were both tremendous shots, and they really hit the bar.
Yeah, well, I think.
Yeah, I think, Phil, in a way, almost the fourth goal, would you say that was another error? Because we got a bit loose around the box. I think we could have cleared it. I mean, obviously an unbelievable finish. But do you think that was another error, or it was a Man City trip? Yeah.
I mean, it was a loose ball. I think it cannoned off Marcus Harness. It's Harness to Haaland. But it was quite a strike, really, wasn't it, from that area, right in the just inside the post. But I think what Kieran found positive was the fact that period, having gone 3-1 behind, that we remained solid at that point and didn't concede again until the 88th minute. Of course, before half time, we could well have been back to 3-2. Kieran certainly made a point of saying in his press conference that should have been a penalty, and he couldn't understand why VAR had kind of dismissed the claim that we had, because Leif Davis did look to be fouled by, I think it was Rico Lewis one side, and then Savinho came and sort of clattered into him as he ran back. So 3-2 again. It might have been a different story, but I mean,
and online people like Martin Keown calling it out as why didn't VAR call it out? It was a good shout. So it would have been at the time, but certainly in the second half they really went up a gear, didn't they? And we were on the back foot, and we weren't with the moments we did break, Phil. We didn't really take advantage of it. Delap was a real good. I thought Delap was excellent today. But again, like we talked about last week against Liverpool, nobody's around him, Phil. So he's just a bit isolated. So we couldn't really punish them when we had those times going forward.
No, we didn't. I think you're right about Delap being isolated, but I think that was an inevitability, really, with the fact that we were pinned back in our final third for such long periods. But yeah, Delap, I think he put himself about. Someone on the message board is saying he should inherit the Bam Bam nickname from Richard Naylor for the way he put himself about. At one point, clattering someone with an elbow and then catching someone else halfway up their leg with his boot in the same movement almost.
Exactly. There were two players on the ground around him. They were dropping like flies. Okay, so let's moving on a little bit. As you know, Homer on the TWTD forum does asks the forum members for a summary of the game in 3 words. I thought I'd pick out a few. So, comeback Hladky, rather harsh, that one, but obviously there were errors from Muric. But again, a couple of moments, Phil, I still liked some of the ping balls out of midfield. You could see what is to come, but certainly some people we spoke to at the ground were saying, was he still a bit injured? Another one is shoot yourself, which I think again is relating back to the fact that they were errors. Trust the process. So we're on a journey. We've all talked about these are free hits. We go on to Fulham and learn. So what would be your summary in 3 words, Phil? Really putting you on the spot there.
Oh, well, yeah, I was just thinking, thank God it's over. That's too many words. I think it's out the way, perhaps, these 2 games. I think they're very difficult baptism of fire in the Premier League. And we've acquitted ourselves well. I know we're not taking any points from them, but we've not been humiliated in any of those games. I think there are positives we can take from both those games. I think in that time we've signed players, or we're about to sign players that will strengthen us. And now we've got Fulham at home next week, into the kind of more normal sort of Premier League opposition, the teams that we'll have to take points from if we're going to secure our place for next season.
And certainly, Phil, I think, when we were 3-1, when the third went in, I think there was a chance of capitulation, and we did just sort of regroup. And Hutchinson had one of those injuries where he kind of went down, whether that was an injury or whether they just wanted to slow the game down. Just the final 3 words from the forum was hooray, OR. And I think, guys, I'm not sure what it came across from the press box, but it was euphoric in the away end. I've been in a lot of Ipswich away ends, and I can tell you it was bedlam. So, okay, let's move on. Kallum, take us through the kind of just a summary of the City lineup and who sort of stood out for you, please.
Well, who doesn't stand out in that Manchester City lineup? One of probably the most expensively assembled side we've ever come up against. There were a few standouts. I thought Savinho. Erling Haaland will rightly get man of the match for a hat trick, of course. But I thought Savinho on the right was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was causing Leif Davis a lot of problems. We saw that for the penalty. He's got a good turn of pace on him, similar to Doku on the other side, but it feels like he's got a bit more end product about him. The back line wasn't hugely tested, it's fair to say. But again, some of the names in there, Gvardiol, Ake, Akanji, Ruben Diaz, John Stones. They've got so many defensive options, haven't they? Kevin De Bruyne, whenever he got the ball, was trying to ping some sort of outrageous 70-yard pass that anyone other than...
I think this is what we waited for, Kallum. I was right up in the gods, and to get that perspective, just seeing De Bruyne moving the ball, it is enjoyable despite losing 4, and it's enjoyable to watch these people. What do you think about Rico Lewis? I thought Lewis, I've not really, I know Pep Guardiola really rates Lewis. I haven't really seen that, but today I thought he looked really strong player.
Yeah, Rico Lewis was clearly excellent. He's got this role now under Pep Guardiola where he's both a fullback and a midfielder, and at times a winger, which sounds outrageous, but only in Pep Guardiola's system is that actually a thing. He was popping up all over the place. 1 minute he is on sort of the right of a back 3, and then the next minute he's in the centre of midfield. Then you see him pop up on the left. His defensive attributes are excellent. And then 1 minute he's popping up in the penalty box. He hit the bar from about 8 yards out when I thought it was easier to score. I think that was at 3-1, where he just went for power and tried to slam it and ended up hitting the crossbar. De Bruyne then hit the crossbar about a minute later from outside the box. But yeah, clearly their squad is so talented, and I think we can take a lot of heart from the way that we competed against that. We weren't well in the game per se, but we were clearly had a game plan. We went out not to sit back and park the bus, and that showed with the early goal for Schmodix. I wish I could go back to 9 minutes past 3 because for a few minutes at that time, it was one of the best times we could have imagined.
It really was.
Really good for Schmodix as well to get himself off the mark in a Town shirt. It's his 4th goal of the season already.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, firstly, getting the first goal and getting him on the score sheet is going to really set us up well for the rest of the season, I think. And I think we went into the back 5 quite well. I liked Axel. I mean, Doku is a handful, but I thought Axel was handling him quite well. On that note, let's look at the Town lineup, Phil. Pretty much as expected. Muric was obviously coming in. We mentioned maybe he still wasn't fully fit. Just talk us through any thoughts on the Town lineup.
Yeah, as you say, it was we kind of anticipated Muric coming back. I think as soon as he was fit, Johnson coming in in that right-sided role. I think was the idea is just to be a bit more defensive. Whether that would be the case next week, perhaps maybe get Hutchinson in, because of course we'll have other options next week, won't we? With Clark perhaps being there. Well, I think we can anticipate that Clark will be there to be on the left at that point. Elsewhere, Szmodic. Yeah, I kind of think we predicted that Szmodic might come in for Chaplin. I think Chaplin was perhaps one of those that was least effective against Liverpool last week, and obviously Szmodic has already got himself a couple of goals. And losing Burns meant that we lost a bit of pace from the team. And so I think Szmodic coming in, and as I said, Kieran spoke about how the goal we scored was the type of goal we anticipated scoring, because you'd get Szmodic and Hutchinson in behind. Well, I think that was probably why Szmodic perhaps got the nod. Part of the reason Szmodic got the nod ahead of Chaplin for today, because it sort of fitted in with the game plan of trying to kind of.
And I think Phil, we are missing Burns. That pace, that physicality on the right, it causes problems. And I think Johnson, I don't think Johnson's still quite there yet, but again, it's unfair to criticise him because he's not playing in that kind of the position he'd normally be in. But there were 2 or 3 occasions where he missed a ball through that could have gone through, just by good blocks from Man City, but also, I don't think he executed that well. Okay, well, listen, thanks so much, guys. It's been really good insights from you both. And what a fantastic occasion! It was a good game to watch, wasn't it? It was a good occasion. What are your sort of closing comments from you, Phil, and then we'll hand over to Kallum.
Yeah, I think it's that coming sort of. It feels like we've come through these 2 games relatively unscathed, if you see what I mean. I think that the worst thing would be if we'd have lost both of them 6-0. Do you know what I mean? And it would have really hit the mood and the momentum. I know we've not won games. It's the first time Kieran has lost consecutive league games since he's been at the club. But no disgrace in losing to Liverpool, no disgrace in losing to Manchester City. But I think I was going to say unscathed, but then of course we did lose Wes Burns to an injury, which, as you say, is a big blow. But I think we've come through it without looking like we're going to be whipping boys in the division, which could have happened to sides coming up, having such tough fixtures in their first 2. And I think everybody's now sort of looking positively to Fulham and the games that will follow on from there that are against the kind of more, I'm going to say run of the mill. Run of the mill is not quite the right word, but the more standard Premier League teams that we need to be competing with if we're going to stay up, which obviously is the main aim.
In the little mini relegation league that's already beginning to form, and some of our rivals losing today. But Fulham becomes big, and I think the Portman Road crowd are going to have a part to play in that as well. Kallum, what are your final thoughts on the trip to the Etihad?
Yeah, well, it really isn't a disaster. I think that's the situation we've got to find ourselves in. Yes, we've lost the opening 2 games of the season, but it's clearly. There's no, as Phil said, there's no disgrace in losing to Liverpool, and there's no disgrace in losing to Manchester City. Some have said the season starts now. I slightly disagree. I think the season did start last weekend, and they're important games. But there's so many other teams around us that have also not picked up any points yet. We've still got players to come in. We've got Calvin Phillips to come into the side. We've got Jens Kajustad to come into the side. There'll be 1 or 2 more additions, you would imagine, over the next week or so. And we've got 2 of the toughest games out of the way. So, yeah, today was, as a performance today, I actually thought the performance was okay. We didn't disgrace ourselves in the game. The team really, really go on the run towards adversity sort of mantra. I mean, I spoke to Sam Morsey just earlier, and he mentioned it unprompted about how it is spoken about in the dressing room when it comes to all the games, but in particular games like this. And he was also really pleased with the attacking point of view, because while we only had one shot on target, there were opportunities that we had in the game in both halves where we could have found the back of the net.
Yeah,
and
I think
not many teams are going to get that at Manchester City this season.
Yeah.
There will be teams that come here and get no chances at all and get beat 4-5-6. That will happen here at the Etihad to teams, and possibly teams that you'd say are better than us. So
yeah, I mean, I think, Kallum, we created passages of threat that we didn't quite execute, but that was a positive. And in a way, they didn't tear us apart. I think they were good. When we went to 5, we were quite solid. We didn't get torn apart, and frankly, they were mainly some of our own errors that gave the goals away. So we can leave feeling positive. And I think, we've used the theme of running towards adversity at the start of this week's show, and it's so true, and it didn't get much more adverse than that. So listen, guys, thank you so much for providing a view from the press box. We look forward to Fulham and hopefully getting some points on the board, and we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Outside the Etihad, where we're looking back at the 4-1 loss to Manchester City. And I'm joined by Adam, a regular on TWTV, who actually does the pre-match blog with lots of stats about the opposition side. Adam, welcome on board.
Thank you very much.
Well, what an experience.
It was unreal. Yeah. After that goal went in the 8th minute, 3 minutes of euphoria before
it was absolutely euphoric. Around me, people were literally losing their minds. And in fact, we were both in the upper tier, right up in the gods, quite high up actually. And it was just bedlam. But it's a shame the euphoria didn't last too long. And obviously, the focus of your blog is a lot about the stats.
Yeah.
Is there a particular stat that stood out that you unearthed before the game that you sort of played out today?
I think coming into this, I was very pessimistic about our chances. Man City lost 3 times last year in total. They didn't lose at the Etihad at all. The last time they lost here was against Brentford back in November 2022. So
the gods were kind of against us a little bit, I think.
Hiding to nothing
but,
a little
but,
bit.
I thought we actually came out quite well, and I like what was going on. And I think, the annoying thing in a way is that the goals that followed ours, Davis went in a bit too. It was a penalty, I think. Although a lot of talk about we had a good penalty shout
on Davis. At the
apparently,
other end.
Martin Keown online is saying it was a good penalty shout. So that's a loss. But I just thought we gave away their goals. They were mistakes. Muric, sloppy playouts. How did you sort of take Muric's performance?
He didn't look fit to me. Yeah. He was struggling with movement. That the second one, he just gets pushed off the ball too easily, but that's because he just didn't look sharp with his first touch there. But it's risk and reward with him. Yeah. He's going to play on the edge.
And actually, 2 times I think he did those ping balls out, and I really liked it. So that's what we're going to hope he's going to grow into.
Hopefully,
Okay, so let impressions at the Etihad. I was really impressed. Obviously, it used to be the Commonwealth Stadium back in the day. They're increasing the size of the ground above the behind the goals. Really impressive ground, I thought.
Definitely. Yeah. You can see it from quite far away as you walk in, and the scale and everything. And the pitch itself as well is really wide, which obviously suits their style and their flying wingers as well.
I really noticed that way. It's a big pitch, and they could get a lot of width on that. And we frankly weren't using that width. There were moments where I thought Johnson actually could have played in some balls. Yeah. We had moments where we could have played that ball, but we didn't quite make it. Okay, so atmosphere, I think we touched on it. Yeah. The away following was excellent.
Unreal. It went a bit flat after their 3rd goal in, understandably, because it was 3 in about 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah. But it picked back up. I was at Leeds last year, and when we lost 4-0, that went flat and just never got back going. But I think people are just enjoying being back in the Premier League, coming to stadiums like this and facing.
And I think I understood the lower tier was a little bit, but the upper tier was really rocking at times, wasn't it? Basically, interestingly, the home supporters, they leave very early, don't they?
There were some leaving at about 80 minutes, some possibly even before then. They were quite quiet all game as well. I thought.
And huge amounts of blue seats at the end, which really surprised me. And lots of good chants for us. You're cheating. There's some kind of what kind of songs were we giving them? I think the ref was getting a bit of hassle at times because it was
there
a few
were some
things.
questionable decisions. A lot of cheating chants.
Yeah.
I think were mainly directed at them. But I thought it was all good-natured.
It was good-natured banter, actually, and I think they quite appreciate it. Of course, the big one was, where were you when you were shit? Which I thought went down quite well.
Which they were throwing back at us as well. It was like a two-way thing.
That's quite true. Okay. So let's look ahead. Thanks again for joining us, Adam. I think looking ahead, Fulham becomes a big game now. And I think the home atmosphere, the home fans willing to get behind it. Fulham are not an easy side, though. What's your thoughts looking ahead to that?
I think it will be a completely different game. Fulham, they've lost a few players. João Palhinha's been sold. I think he'll be their biggest miss, and they'll be trying to find a solution for him. I think Fulham will be one of those teams that we'll be looking at and thinking we need to take at least 1 point off of them. I think they'll be in that relegation mini league as such.
And there were quite a few losses to some of our rivals in that relegation league today, which looks good. But okay, well, again, thanks for joining TWTV. We look forward to the Fulham game and hopefully a chance to get our first points on the board.
We've got the first goal, so hopefully the first points soon to come.
And Shimodic was a highlight. You know, he really stood out as a great player. Adam, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
See you all again soon.